Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, and boy, does it feel good to be back talking some UFC. Joining me today, I have SBR's UFC expert, David Manyun, and MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. Before we get into all the good, juicy stuff, just go ahead, give this video a like, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a show. Now, how are you guys? It has been, I feel like I haven't seen you guys in a year, but it's so glad to have, just like having you right here. It feels so good. I just want to hear from you. How is your new year? I'll start with Dave.
Oh.
Hello, Dave.
His new year went so well that he lost all of his voice.
Can't hear you. But how about you, Matt? We'll continue with you. How was your new year?
Blurry, due to my newfound love of wild turkey and root beer mixed together. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. It's been a little hectic here at the Olive Dome with the holidays and everything, but we've got a lot of great fights coming up. The first ever fight on ABC this weekend, which is weird when you think about it. It's only the third network or fourth network, I don't know if NBC has done it, to air in the United States, a traditional broadcast network to air mixed martial arts, high-level mixed martial arts. We saw it on CBS. We've seen it on Fox, and now we're seeing it on ABC. This is a big step for the sport and a great card for the UFC to show out in front of a larger audience on the American Broadcasting Corporation.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for this. And then I keep thinking about it. For some reason today, I keep thinking about Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. But I'm like, no, it's Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar. So I'm very excited for what's coming up. So how about, David, is your microphone working? There we go. Well, let's just move on real quick. So, Matt, we'll continue with you. So for this weekend, it's going to be Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. We have UFC Fight Island 7. So we're back at Fight Island. And then this was like 3 weeks ago, but we had Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal. Matt, I just want to hear real quick how that fight went for you and how you felt about that.
That feels like 90 years ago, to be honest with you. Stephen Thompson and Jeff Neal, two top competitors. It set the table for what's going to be a really fun start to 2021. You had a year filled with controversy. So many in between now and then, it feels like 8,622 fighters have been cut from the UFC and then brought into the PFLs and Bellators of the world. And it's a lot has happened in that stretch of time that it's really hard to remember that this has just been about 3 weeks since we've had our last fight in the UFC. It's insane to me.
It does not feel like 3 weeks to me. But honestly, let's jump into this weekend because I know we're all waiting for that breakdown. So let's just go ahead. We have, for the first fight, we have middleweight. Punahele, I always mess up his name. Punahele Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic via Bet Online. We have Todorovic minus 157 and Soriano.
Soriano, really quick, he got a knockout in his first UFC appearance. It's really hard not only to get a win in your first UFC appearance, but to get a stoppage win. And Soriano did that back at UFC 254. Has only had in his 7-fight career only one fight go past the first round, and that was his Dana White Contender Series win over Jamie Pickett. In his career, he's got 2 submission wins, 3 TKO wins, and 1 decision win. This guy does not go past the first round, so he's going up against a guy in Todorovic who's only had 40% or 4 fights in his 10-fight career go past the first round. His only decision was a win over Teddy Ash on the Dana White Contender Series. So we've got 2 DWCS competitors, 2 veterans of the Dana White Contender Series facing off here. It is at Flash Forum. It is on the place that they like to call Fight Island, but it's just in the middle of the UAE. So these guys have fought each other before, but this is their first time fighting in the UFC, second time for Soriano in the UFC's traditional cage, in the bigger cage. So this is going to be an interesting shift here. We've seen Daquan Townsend in his UFC debut back in October. He knocked out Todorovic did back in October on the home Aldana card. For me, I like Soriano in this. He's had 3 less fights than Todorovic, but I feel like he might have the edge coming in this one. He's going to try to finish it quick. He's going to try to use the cage to his advantage. And he's got 2 submission wins, 3 knockout wins, and has only gone to decision once, as I said before. So he's going to try to play the pressure game. And there's a lot of geography to cover, but I feel like Soriano may be able to pull that off.
Yeah, and if you guys are liking that, that's good value right there, or decent value, because it's odds, so it's plus 137. I was going to say minus 157. But Soriano is plus 137. If you do want to get in on that fight again via BetOnline, Dusko Todorovic is minus 157 and Soriano is plus 137. I can't pronounce these names today. But let's move on to the next fight. Okay. I'm just have like a lot of energy right now. All right. So middleweight.
We're back. It's our first show of 2021. There's energy to be had.
I'm so happy to be back. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We have middleweight Joaquin Buckley versus Alessio de Chirico via BetOnline. Buckley is minus 260 and de Chirico is plus 220. Matt, your breakdown and pick for that fight.
I feel like these odds make sense, especially when you look at Alessio de Chirico. He's 12-5. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, all of them by unanimous decision. He's been in 4 straight fights that have gone the distance, including a win over Julian Marquez, which was his most recent win, which is well over a year ago. But the deeper this fight goes, the worse it is for de Chirico. Aside from those 3 losses, he's 4-4 in his career when the fight goes into the 3rd round. But he's never been knocked out. He's never been submitted. The only time he's lost has been by decision. The longer this fight goes, the odds are stacked against him. And for Buckley, he's coming off he's got a 2-fight winning streak, both of them by knockouts. He's going to test the chin of de Chirico. He's got 3 wins by decision. His last loss was to Kevin Holland. So the level of competition here between these 2 fighters is significant. Going up against a guy like Kevin Holland and Joaquin Buckley, a guy who's got some name value. De Chirico, awesome MMA name, top flight MMA name. But in terms of competition, not necessarily the same level, at least not right now. For me, I'm going to go with Buckley. I wouldn't be surprised if de Chirico is impressive in rounds 1 and halfway through round 2, but the deeper this fight goes, the better it is for Buckley, who's going to probably look for a knockout. He's never been submitted, Buckley. He's been knocked out twice and once by decision. It's going to be an interesting fight, but for me, it's going to be Buckley.
No, I'm with you with Buckley on that one. That's a good move. So, again, via BetOnline, if you guys want to get on that fight, Buckley is minus 260 and de Chirico is plus 220. You can throw him into a parlay piece. Next up, we have welterweight Santiago Ponzinibbbio versus Jingliang. Why can't I pronounce names today? Via BetOnline, Ponzinibbbio is minus 290 and Lee is plus 245. Matt, I'll continue with you again for your breakdown and pick for that fight.
Okay, so I don't know how Dave is picking this for his punch and parlay. I'm blaming the ghosts of MMA. I'm blaming Dana White from cutting him from our stream right now because Dana White's just cutting everything up. But Ponzinibbbio is on a 7-fight winning streak with 4 knockout and TKO wins and 3 decisions in that run. His last loss, Lee, was in a much simpler time, 2015. It's only 6 years ago, but it feels like a millennium ago. That's the last time he lost, and he lost to Lorenz Larkin. So, interesting run for him there. In this run, Ponzinibbbio has beaten Neil Magny, Mike Perry, Gunnar Nelson, and Court McGee. Training at American Top Team, has only suffered 2 losses in the 8 years he's been in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But on the other side, Jingliang lost to Neil Magny in his most recent fight, a common opponent there. So that's an interesting tell for someone like Jingliang, who had it back in March of 2020, right when the world was about to be set on fire. That ended a 3-fight winning streak with wins over Daichi Abe, David Zawada, and Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. 7 wins by knockout, 5 by decision, 5 by submission. Only been submitted once. The other 5 losses of his career for Jingliang was by decision. For me, this is a big win for Santiago. I think he's got the edge heading into this fight, aside from all the stats that I'm building out here. That common opponent is a big sign for me, a big tell, and leveling up competition. When you look at the guys that Jingliang beat heading into that fight with with Neil Magny, pardon me, that's a big indicator of a guy maybe not ready. He might be able to pull off the upset, but Lee, take a look at the odds, and I think for me, Santiago's the overwhelming favorite in this fight, and this one's going to be a 3-rounder. I think this goes the distance, but I think Santiago pulls out the win and finds a way to hold Lee back for 3 rounds.
Every time you say Lee, I just think of myself. Like, yes, I'm fighting Santiago, but no.
You know what? I think you might have an outside shot. I don't know what the line would be on that. SBR, the guys in the back might have to calculate that. But I'd drop a nickel on you.
I would get it. I'd probably win. I'm just kidding. Again, if you guys want to get it on that fight via Bet Online, Santiago Ponzinibbbio is -290, and Li Jingliang is +245. Let's move on to the co-main. We have welterweight Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. Via BetOnline, Condit is -170 and Brown is +145. Now your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
All right, well, let's take a look at this really quick. I just wanted to see if in the chat, if anybody's telling me that I'm a piece of garbage. No, nothing yet. Taking a look at Carlos Condit, he ended a 5-fight losing streak back in October against Court McGee. In that time, he lost to Michael Chiesa, Alex Oliveira, Neil Magny, Damian Maia, and Robbie Lawler. His last stoppage win, Lee, was back in 2015, 6 years or many moons ago, with a TKO win over Thiago Alves. His last winning streak began. This is a multiple-fight winning streak. The last time he had more than 2 wins, Lee, was 11 years ago. Back when you were in kindergarten and I was just getting my 3rd divorce. So this is a very long time ago. You can find me on Tinder under the name Please God Help Me. That fighting streak 11 years ago was halted by a decision loss to GSP at UFC 154, ending his opportunity to be in the upper echelon fighting a guy in GSP who now says he hated fighting. I get it, but that's just an interesting side note from the week. 15 wins by knockout for Condit, 13 wins by submission, has only gone to decision 9 times in his career, Lee, but that is a harrowing 3-6. So if you are Matt Brown in this situation, your record by decision, not good either. You are 2-4. Matt Brown and Carlos Condit do not want this fight to go to a decision. This is also 2 veteran guys who may not have the gas tank to go all 3 rounds. So you're looking at a Matt Brown who's 2-4 on the scorecards career-wise, and then Carlos Condit 3-6. You have lost twice the amount of times than you've been able to win on the scorecards. That is a harrowing situation for guys like Brown, who have 14 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission, and Condit 15 by knockout, 13 by submission. The last win for Matt Brown was a KO to Ben Saunders back in 2019. He is 4-6 in his last 10. This is the co-main event, by the way, which is weird. I think it's a great job to honor these welterweight veterans in Condit and Brown. But Matt Brown, 4-6 in his last 10. 4 of those 6 losses came by stoppages against Miguel Baeza, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Jake Ellenberger, and Damian Maia. So both of these guys have faced Damian Maia in the past. They have felt the repercussions of one of the most dangerous men in MMA. For me right now, I'm going with Carlos Condit because he's got the most recent victory and on paper the most impressive record. Fought the same level of competition and it has lived through it and I'm going to go with the name here. I have to go with the name, not just because I'm some sort of MMA fanboy, but when you look at the tape here, if this goes deep into the 3rd round, I'm just going to rip up a slip and just walk away. I'm just going to walk away.
Okay. Well, if you guys want to get on that fight again via BetOnline, Carlos Condit is -170 and Matt Brown is +145. And also, I must point out, in the chat, they're saying that you said you'd eat paper and they're waiting. But I'm pretty sure that you said you'd eat a hat, not paper.
I did
and
eat
you
a
ate
hat.
your hat.
I ate the hat.
Yes, you ate your hat.
I
now,
ate the hat.
Now let's move on to the main event, okay? This is going to be a great main event. We have featherweight Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. Via BetOnline, Holloway is -154 and Kattar is +134. I'd like to hear your breakdown and pick for the main event.
Ooh, da lolly. I got to clean my glasses for this one because this is going to be, I think, the most important fight of Max Holloway's career. As we said, it's the first UFC card on ABC. This is a big main event. Obviously, this is the biggest fight of Calvin Kattar's career. But for Max Holloway, this is a turning point. We've talked about fighters in peak and post-peak, and we talked about Tyron Woodley in the past, and we've talked about a few other fighters who we're seeing their post-peak. Mm-hmm. I don't want that to be the case for Max Holloway. I want to see Max Holloway compete at a high level, when I'm in my 40s. It's a little closer than I think Max Holloway is to his 40s, but he's coming off of 2 straight losses to Alexander Volkanovski. That split decision win the last time they faced off. You can make an argument either way, but Alexander Volkanovski is the king of the featherweight division right now, and Holloway has got to fight his way back up. His last 2-fight losing streak was in 2013 to Dennis Bermudez and Conor McGregor. So Holloway does not take losing streaks lightly, and he does not take his opponents lightly, but he's 1-3 in his last 4, including those losses to Volkanovski. You remember he moved up to lightweight, moved up to 155, and lost to Dustin Poirier. His only win in the last 4 fights has been a unanimous win against Frankie Edgar for the featherweight title. This is an interesting fight. You don't know what Max Holloway is going to do. You don't know with the time off, with the training to preparing, traveling to the UAE, on top of everything going on in the world right now, what's going on in the oceanic continent, as opposed to what's going on here in North America, drastically different. The world's a little more open down for Max Holloway. But right now, you look at Calvin Kattar, wins over Dan Ige and Jeremy Stevens. His last loss was in November of 2019 against a man in Zabit Magomed who is a monster. I don't know if he's on the level of Max Holloway just yet, but Kattar, 4-2 in his last 6, with only one of those going inside the distance in terms of wins. He's got 3 knockouts in his last 4 wins. That's a big, big number. And for a guy like Holloway, whose chin has been tested against Volkanovski, against Dustin Poirier, a guy who's been through wars inside the octagon, I want to go Holloway, but I'm really liking Kattar in this fight. I think and then I heard that clap. I think Dave's alive. That also could be him slapping me in the back of the head for what I'm about to say, but I'm going with Calvin Kattar here. I'm going to go with Kattar. I think the deeper this fight goes, it's advantage for Kattar. Holloway's going to play it a little safer than he has in his last 4 fights. I think that those 3 losses have affected his confidence, will affect his game plan. He's going to try to play all 5 rounds, and I don't know if that's going to be good for him going up against a guy whose last loss inside the distance, Lee, came when you were in preschool back in 2008 in Elite XC. Dave, you remember Elite XC? That feels like 95 lifetimes ago. But Calvin Kattar fought in it before the Obama administration, in the second George W. Bush administration. So this is a guy who's ready for war, and I want Max Holloway to win. I want him to fight for the title again, but I just don't like it. Something's not sitting right with me, Dave.
I know the line has moved just a smidge towards Kattar's way, but Dave, you're back. Now, you came back at the perfect time. Now, we are breaking down the main event with Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar, and I would love to hear your breakdown and pick, and I'll give you the odds real quick. We have Max Holloway at -154 and Calvin Kattar at +134. Dave, your breakdown and pick.
Yeah, I was listening to Matt closely, and look, I completely understand for anyone who is going to back Calvin Kattar this week, or Kattar. I'm not actually sure how it's pronounced, but, Kattar, whatever. Or anybody that's taking Max Holloway. You can't, it's a real tough fight to predict. These guys are so similar in terms of their offense that it's going to be a striking war. We know that. We can say that we're probably not going to see any grappling, probably not going to see them scrambling on the floor. But if we do, then we're going to have to favour Holloway. We saw the guillotine. Was it the guillotine? Who did he lock that nasty guillotine on? Can you remember who that was, Matt?
I'm going to take a look at his record here and see the last time he got a submission.
We focus on Holloway's striking a lot, and I think if he really wanted to secure this, make this a little bit of a grappling war, but I just don't think that's going to happen. It's Max Holloway, right? Them 2 losses to Volkanovski, they've kind of scarred his progression right now. I'm not really sure he wants to be, but the hunger's there for Max. You can see the hunger's there, and I think this fight is going to boil down to the cardio and the movement of Max Holloway. To beat Max, you need to make him work early, and you need to steal them early rounds from him, similar to how Volkanovski did. You need to take away that advantage that Max enters to the fight with, and that's his ability to grow as the fight progresses. Now, Kattar, he's a similar type of fighter. He doesn't get off the bat straight away. These guys like to ease into the fights. We're not going to see them come out and get many round one knockouts or round one finishes. It's quite rare from both of these guys, just because they're slow starters. If you're a slow starter against the best slow starter in the UFC, Max Holloway, it's gonna be a problem for you. It's no joke either. Like, these statistics that people go on about with Holloway becoming stronger as the fight goes on. You can go check the stats. Holloway loses a lot of rounds and he gives up a lot of round ones just based off of learning as the fight goes on. It's one of the best ways to fight, because it's all well and good being in the gym and studying these fighters and trying to anticipate what they're going to do. But each fighter can enter the octagon with a new skill. So you've got to be ready for anything. And that's why I love Max Holloway. He's known for his gas tank. If you do not have 25 minutes of fighting you, Max Holloway is going to steal this fight. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to touch on that point Dave made real quick about learn. It is a great skill, and especially if it's a 5-round fight. But we've seen in his last 4 fights, 3 of them have been decision losses, and he's given rounds away. And the more rounds you give away, yeah, you're learning more, but it also forces Holloway to be on the front foot more, and he's got to be more aggressive in those later rounds, and that just might open him up to get caught.
Yeah, see, a lot of people will say, they'll claim Kattar is one of the best boxers in the division, and you know what? He's definitely up there, but for how good he is with his hands, I think Max Holloway is just a little bit better with his feet. And I think it's the movement. The movement of Max Holloway doesn't stop. So that's saying he's going to have the same speed and energy in his movement that he does, because he's just so calm and collective. It's a tough fight to predict. I wouldn't run to start putting money down and, laying your bankroll on it. But for me, I just think Max Holloway has definitely got another run in him. At age 29, too, we forget. Max Holloway is grew up in this sport. He's gone from a boy to a man in this sport, and the experience is just untouchable. And I know Kattar has fought nothing but killers since he's entered the UFC. But I don't fancy his chances against Max across 25 minutes, and I don't think anybody's going to get the finish. So that leads me to believe that it is going to be a judge's scorecard at the end of this one. And I'm going to side with Max. I don't think Max wants to lose another decision, especially after the Volkanovski the second time around, because, that fight's a bit 50-50. Critics, they're split, media's split down the middle. Half are giving it to Max and half give it to Volk. So it is tough, especially losing by decision. I don't think Max Holloway is going to let that happen again.
Yeah. Okay, if you guys want to get on that fight again via BetOnline, Max Holloway is -154 and Calvin Kattar's +134. Now, Dave, I just need to ask you, do you have a top lock for this main card? Not the prelims, just the main card.
I wouldn't, I never go as far as saying locks, but, people always slate me for it, because I do get quite a few predictions correct. It's easy just to go, here's a -300, let's pick him, he's going to win, but it's hard to ignore Buckley right now, the owner of that knockout of the year. I think the level of competition for him in Chirico is convenient, let's just say. I think the UFC wants to see another highlight reel, perhaps, but I don't think they did their research too good, because Chirico doesn't get knocked out. That guy's got a solid chin, and as much as I do think Buckley's going to win that, he's going to have his hand raised. I did actually give the over on my bookmaker review article, so I think it's going to go over 1.5 rounds, but I also think that Buckley can get the win, and I do think he can get the knockout, but not until towards the end of the fight, end of round 2, round 3 times, if he is going to get the knockout. But yeah, it's got to be Buckley for me this week, probably out of that main card.
Okay, and I won't ask for another lock, but in the prelims, is there a fight that stands out to you the most?
Do you know what? It seems as of recent, whenever lock in on a fight and I begin to study this fight relentlessly. And I'm not joking, guys. I've been watching fights since Christmas, like every single day. And these fights get cancelled on me, and it really bums me out. But these prelims, I don't know. I think Amari Akhmedov at dog money has a great chance of putting out Tom Breeze. Akhmedov gets stuck against real high-level strikers who can, throw a lot at him. And as much as I do think Tom Breeze is a good striker, I don't think he's going to tackle the wrestling of Akhmedov this weekend. And, a dog money, I think you can get Akhmedov at 140, 130, plus 130 at some books. So I think that's some good value right there. And then Amiv was decent value, but I think his price is just going, because in that fight, Zawada versus Amiv, the only threat that Amiv has really got in that fight is a submission loss. I anticipate Ramazan Amiv just sitting on his opponent, cliche Russian grappling wrestling style, make it ugly, make his opponent tired, and walk away with a unanimous decision. But his odds they're quite steep, so I don't like throwing out locks when it's it's minus 300. It's not anyone can do that. But yeah, there's not much for this one. The next card, the Fight Island 8 card, is a lot juicier in terms of betting. That's for sure.
For sure. Well, how about you, Matt? Is there a prelim fight that stands out to you?
Well, I'm taking a look at the prelim card now, and I like Zawada versus Amiv. Vanessa Mello fighting real early on the prelims against Sarah Moras. But for me, I'm going to go with the heavyweight fight. I'm going to go with the big boy fight, Carlos Felipe versus Justin Tafa. I like big boy fights. I want an entire card of just heavyweight freak fights. Just give it to me. You got 9 million UFC cards a year now. Just give me one. Just give me one to put it all heavyweights, all big boys. We could put the heavyweight title on in the finale. I feel like that's the card we deserve after 2020. We need a fat man fight card. I've been demanding it on Combat Culture for weeks, months. It feels like it's getting a little redundant at this point, but I will get a freak fight card in 2021.
Well, there you guys have it. Well, that's our main card breakdown for this upcoming weekend. Again, for UFC Fight Night, Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. It's going to be UFC Fight Island 7. And yes, in Abu Dhabi, in Fight Island. So I highly recommend giving the guys a follow on Twitter, and you can see it right under their faces. You can give Dave a follow at @DManion_ and Matt at MRyan Consulting. You can also give SBR a follow on Twitter and on Instagram at SBRpigs.com. SBRpigs.com/UFC. That's where our articles are. You can follow us on Twitter at SBR Sports Pigs. But yes, again, if you want to check out all of Dave's articles and the rest of SBR's UFC experts, just go to SBRpigs.com/UFC or just click the link in the description below. And also, you can go to Matt's Twitter. You can go to MMA Mania and check out all of his content as well. Again, that's all that I have. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Best of luck this weekend on all of your bets, and we'll see you next week.